This is the Fantasy Football Fellowship podcast, where we unpack fantasy, faith, and life. I'm Bryce Johnson. Trip is out of town today. Should be back next week. But I am your fantasy coach, here to encourage you and help you win while you play fantasy football with purpose. As I provide fantasy advice today, I won't always be right, but I hope I'll be convincing. I'm coming to you live from the Unpacking It Ministry studio in Mount Holly, North Carolina, just outside of Charlotte, North Carolina. And today on the show, man, we're going to recap a wild week 11 in the NFL. And what does it mean moving forward? How many of these performances are sort of blips on the radar, and how many of them are actually something to take notice that could continue moving forward? And so we've got strong performances from backup running backs, surprising quarterbacks with huge performances, and then just some random wide receivers that did well. And then a couple studs we have to be concerned about. We'll do peace or panic today. We'll do some bandwagon riding. How many of these players do we jump on the bandwagon for the rest of the season? And then I'll do a little accountability and confession as well. Some things I've gotten right, wrong, things that we need to discuss today. And then most importantly, each week on this show, we do a breakout where we take a fantasy football concept related to the Bible, related to life. And today, the topic is throw a pity party. Oh, yeah. We're talking about wallowing in self-pity when it comes to how bad our fantasy team is. You know, those seasons you find yourself in the middle of it right now. Everything's going wrong. You can't make the right move. Everybody's injured. Everything's going against you. You're losing every tight matchup. How do we respond? And is there something better than throwing a pity party? And so we'll have some fun with that, but also I think it's just an important topic that I know I resonate with, that I hope we can encourage one another in today. So we'll get to that in just a little bit. Always encourage you to check out our website, fantasyfootballfellowship.com, and be sure to sign up for your free membership. It's never too late. Finish the season strong. If you're just finding us, check out more content on the website, and then hopefully you'll get your league involved next year. And so appreciate all of you that have been participating in league meetings this year. Would love to hear from you. How has the season gone? You can email me, Bryce at fantasyfootballfellowship.com, and always love hearing from you. Appreciate all of your financial support as well so that we can keep doing Fantasy Football Fellowship. So thank you in advance, and thank you for all of you that already have supported Fantasy Football Fellowship, specifically through Unpacking It Ministries. All right, so let's jump into, man, a very interesting week 11. And so we begin with our segment, Fantasy Shenanigans.
Fantasy Shenanigans.
All right, so we'll start with Monday Night Football, and then we'll work our way back. And here's the shenanigans for me. I went into Monday Night Football needing Ashton Jeanty to score 12 more points than he did. He finished with like 9. I needed 12 more to get the win. But here's what I found shenanigan-y. The Cowboys defense looked a lot better. Now, I know the Raiders offense isn't very good either, but there was no room for Jeanty to run. And I was excited for any players that I had. I did have Trey Tucker with the Raiders too, and he ended up having a nice day. But it was like, the Cowboys defense isn't any good. That's what all the numbers have shown. They've made some trades. They've made some changes coming out of the bye. They're going to be a little better moving forward. And now for Ashton Jeanty owners or managers, we're concerned. There is a level of concern. He rushed like 6 times for 7 yards. Not good. He didn't look to have the burst or the space or the opportunity. That's concerning. Thankfully, he made up for it, catching balls out of the backfield, which helps. And you expect the Raiders to be down in games moving forward. But I will say, at what point do the Raiders rest Jeanty, protect Jeanty for next year? At what point is the season lost and you go, this guy's this guy's our future. We spent a top pick on him. Let's protect him. So definitely some panic there. A huge day for George Pickens. CeeDee Lamb was solid. Jake Ferguson got into the end zone. Javonte Williams had a lot of yards rushing the ball. So Dak was awesome. So Cowboys can feel pretty good. Again, it's against the Raiders, but some positive momentum for Dallas. And I think if you have any of those players on your team, you should feel pretty good. Pretty good moving forward. And then Raiders guys, it's tough. Thankfully, I did. So I pulled off a trade. This was a wild trade. I ended up trading Isaiah Pacheco, Calvin Ridley, and Evan Ingram for Mark Andrews and Trey Tucker. So before the weekend began, I pulled that trade off. It's a dynasty type league, so there's other ramifications. But to be able to get Trey Tucker and then have a nice top 20 performance, that was encouraging. I actually got Mark Andrews after the Thursday night game, and I played Mason Taylor at the tight end spot. So I had to save Andrews for the home stretch. But he's going to be good for Baltimore. He's a player that jump on the bandwagon moving forward. So a little bit of shenanigans with that trade. It ended up benefiting me pretty good. But then I'm in a matchup on Sunday, and Josh Jacobs goes down. And I'm playing against Emmanuel Wilson. I mean, a manager is a dart throw. I'll throw Emmanuel Wilson in this week as my RB2. And sure enough, Jacobs goes down early. Wilson gets into the end zone, had a decent day, and performed well enough to, be a contributor, whereas you're thinking you're not going to get anything out of him. And so now the question is, will Josh Jacobs be out? Will he miss one game, couple games, or not at all? So there's some question marks around him. And how good is Emmanuel Wilson really? Can you count on him moving forward? I've already seen the top waiver wire pickups. Oh, go get Emmanuel Wilson. It's funny. I've had him on my roster throughout this season because I was like, well, Jacobs, there's a decent chance he could go down, and it's not, Packers offense. But I'm not sure Wilson is that great. And I think Chris Brooks could be involved, and maybe they'll just let Jordan Love pass it even more. Now with Christian Watson playing a little bit better, I'm not sure I'm overly excited about him. Yeah, I think he averaged right around 3 yards a carry this week. So nothing to get overly excited about. But to continue the conversation about backup running backs, this was a week of backup running backs at least getting into the end zone. And then we saw some big performances as well. And so the backup running back that led the way this week, Sean Tucker. How many people started Sean Tucker this week? Oh, yeah, my hand's raised. Talk about a dart throw. There was just some rumblings this past week that I read the tea leaves, and I've been a Sean Tucker guy over the years, and he's never truly gotten like the full support of the Bucs. And so he pops off every once in a while, like the last couple of seasons. And so I'm not sure that we could ever trust him to consistently put up numbers, but he does have it in him. He is that good of a running back where he can have a monster game. So he got 3 touchdowns this past week, was one of the top running backs. He was awesome. And that was impressive. So we'll give him some love. And I put him in a flex spot. I had some guys on buys, and I'm thankful for the start for Sean Tucker. But other backups, how about Kenneth Gainwell? There was plenty of talk about Jaylen Warren truly being the guy in Pittsburgh sort of down the stretch. He got a little banged up. Gainwell comes in, catches out of the backfield especially. He's a major threat out of the backfield. Got into the end zone a bunch and had a monster day. Does that continue? Can we trust the Steelers at all? I mean, I'm a big DK Metcalf guy. It's so up and down. And now with Aaron Rodgers trying to play through an injury, which isn't even necessarily a good thing because he hasn't been playing that well to begin with. Now you add some pain and concern. I don't know. I mean, Gainwell is, I liked him at Philly. I've said this a couple times this year. He's one of those guys that you don't mind having on your roster, but again, he's not going to do it consistently. I don't see him winning you a fantasy championship. But during the bye weeks and a couple injuries, he's okay. He'll give you a little something. And then the other backups that scored: Tyler Algier, Tootin, Singletary, Ty Johnson, Kyle Monungai, my guy, and Ollie Gordon. So this is the time of year you absolutely want backup running backs on your roster, and a couple of these guys will be contributors in the fantasy playoffs for you. And so this is the time, once you figure out your buys, every team's a little different on what players you have buys the most. But once you get through some of those key buy situations, you don't need 3 tight ends. You really don't need 2 quarterbacks either in most leagues. Like, I lucked out this year because I drafted Drake May, and his bye week is week 13 or 14? 14. And so I barely have a backup quarterback. Like, I'm not rostering. I'm just riding. I know he had a down week this week, but Drake May is my guy. Now I'll get a week ahead and I'll pick up just a flyer and that's fine. I'll stream 1 week. I'm down 1 week. But anyway, I want those extra roster spots for backup running backs because running backs get injured this time of year and you want the guys that can come in and play. There is a difference though, because some of these backup running backs are actually talented and are just behind someone who's better than them. And then there are other running backs that will get opportunity and volume, but they're not that good. And so the ceiling's lower. And so you want to have a combination of backup running backs that are talented, that may not ever get a chance, but if they did, wow, it'd be awesome. And then the guys that actually, it's likely that he'll be in there. He might not be as good, but he'll actually get the volume and can be that flex, maybe if you're desperate for an RB2 type of player. So you have to evaluate that with your own team. But like Tyler Algier is really good. Now, Atlanta is one of those teams, though, that is sort of a mess. And now it looks like Penix is going to be out maybe for the year. Drake London's going to miss at least 1 game. And so I'm not sure what Atlanta does the rest of the way. If I'm a Bijan Robinson owner, I'm concerned. And same with Algier. Like, they'll be good, but if things unravel even more in Atlanta, those final few weeks could be ugly. And so we're starting to think playoffs. We're thinking championship. That's where we're at. And so, all right, any other shenanigans from the weekend? How about my Panthers? Bryce Young, 32 fantasy points. I mean, talk about inconsistency and out of the blue. McMillan was awesome. Leggett was awesome. Dowdle had a great game. And now Bryce Young, you look at it and you go, wait a second. He was one of the top quarterbacks this week. Should he be on my roster? I want to see him do it for 3 games in a row. I really, that's what I want. I appreciate what he did on Sunday, and it was amazing against Atlanta, but I got to see more consistency before I'm trusting him as a Panther fan and as a fantasy manager. But we'll give him love for a great performance. But I do think McMillan, yes, McMillan's awesome. He's been great all year. And if Bryce Young does have some consistency, McMillan will be the greatest beneficiary of his good play. And then how about this shenanigans? Jacoby Brissett sets the record for 47 completions. What in the world? Jacoby Brissett, the veteran, the bounce around the league guy, 47. And then Michael Wilson, Greg Dortch, both those guys obviously caught passes from him. Marvin Harrison out of the blue has a appendicitis, appendectomy. That's a crazy thing. So he's out. I think he's only supposed to miss 1 game. We'll see. But that to me is such a one-off performance. Brissett, is he going to do this again? No way. So everybody's all excited about Michael Wilson. We know who Michael Wilson is. He's a random good week here or there guy with some talent, but not enough opportunity. And I wouldn't be overly excited to pick him up. The only thing you're excited about is if you grabbed him and replaced Marvin Harrison this past week and you just kept on rolling and actually got more production than you've even gotten from Harrison this year. Most weeks he's had a couple good games, but that was wild. And then the other shenanigans I got to talk about, the Buffalo Bills. Josh Allen, what a day. 3 rushing, 3 passing touchdowns, 44 fantasy points. Remarkable. He's the one guy you want to draft early. If you want a quarterback, take him early. It's a no-brainer. And I know he had a couple off games, but he's one of those guys that you never write off. You never give up on. You just keep riding Josh Allen as far as you can. Now, on the receiving side of things, I don't think we should have any receivers on our roster. No Buffalo Bills receivers on our roster. Now, I like Dalton Kincaid, so tight end, if he gets healthy, fine. But these guys, I mean, it is across the board. You don't know what you're going to get. So Tyrell Shavers had the most receptions on Sunday. And I don't have it queued up, but as we know on the show, we like to ask the question, wait, who is that? Who is that? Tyrell Shavers? Are you kidding me? 90 yards and a touchdown? But then Josh Allen spread it across the board. We had James Cook with 3 catches, Ty Johnson with 2. Both of those guys scored a touchdown. And then Gabe Davis. Hello, here comes Gabe Davis. He's playing again. 3 catches, 40 yards. Now he's back with Buffalo. And then you had Curtis Samuel as a Panthers fan. This guy is not, you can't trust him at all. Josh Palmer, a couple catches. Samuel, a couple catches. So Shakir, 1 catch. So, and then of course the shenanigans of Keon Coleman, who was out because he missed a team meeting. Inactive. What in the world? So my point is, I dropped Keon Coleman. I couldn't take it anymore. So I'm out. I don't trust any of these guys, other than, of course, you want James Cook as a running back. But from a passing standpoint, it's just Josh Allen. And we've known this, but to me, it was just like another reminder on Sunday. Don't get all excited, like, ooh, maybe Josh Palmer, Keon Coleman's out. Look out for Josh Palmer. I'm looking. I'm not seeing enough. So don't worry about these guys. And I was reading today, Khalil Shakir, gosh, he's on the droppable list, but he was so good last year. It's hard to totally give up on him, but that's the story there. All right. Anything else? Oh, more shenanigans. Justin Fields. He was a top 5 quarterback this week from a fantasy points standpoint, but the Jets are no good. They lost again. It was ugly Thursday night. And so he gets benched for Tyrod Taylor. Okay. I mean, I don't even know what to make of that other than, okay, Fields can run and score fantasy points, can sneak into the end zone, but it doesn't translate. So this doesn't happen too often, but there are scenarios where the football player or the gameplay is so much different than the fantasy and the numbers. And that's why it's important for us. We've got to watch the games, understand the full context, and also look at stats and study stats and have a combination. If you're all one way or the other, I don't think you can be the best fantasy manager possible. You have to factor in both. Because if you were just looking at fantasy points, you're like, oh, Justin Fields, cool. Yeah, but nope, the Jets don't want him out there, and it doesn't really translate to winning football, sustainable football. They can get the one off every once in a while. So there you go. That's this week's shenanigans. All right. So here on the show, we also like to acknowledge when we talk about players or make predictions and give advice that it's wrong. We whiff, but then we also like to acknowledge when we've gotten a couple things right. So we call it accountability and confession.
Pardon me, Mr. Perfect. I guess I forgot that you never ever make a mistake.
Just when I think you couldn't possibly be any dumber, you go and do something like this and totally redeem yourself.
I am the smartest man alive.
All right, I'll start with a confession. I kept Tyrone Tracy in a league. I drafted him in another, and then when Cam Scattaboo broke out, was doing awesome, I just gave up on Tyrone Tracy. I was like, I don't want him. Forget about him. But I did keep him in one league, my keeper league. And I'm thankful that I did, because I actually believe that. So I confess that I gave up on him, and now I'm back on the bandwagon. But him and Devin Singletary both had 17 points. And so both guys, this will be like, the ceiling isn't really there. But I think Tracy catching passes out of the backfield from Jameis Winston could be a really good thing. So I feel good about that. I don't love that Singletary is going to get every touchdown or every red zone touch, goal line touch. But with PPR, Tyrone Tracy is going to be all right. So I'm excited about that. A couple weeks ago, or maybe even last week, I've downplayed the Cardinals backfield. So we talked about the passing game, but I've downplayed the backfield. I do want Trey Benson whenever he returns, because I think he's actually a good running back. But I laughed about Zonovan Knight. He did have 14.5 points this past week. So I have to confess that that's not bad. we're looking for points from running backs. So I whiffed on that. And then AJ Barner was one of those tight ends that I wanted, I dropped, I wanted, I dropped. I like him. Nah, he's not really that good. And this past week, 17 points. And I had Noah Fant instead. So that was, he had like 6 points. So that was a miss. I'm bummed about that. On a positive note, can we talk about Travion Henderson some more? How good is Travion? How fun was that Thursday night for us Travion Henderson managers? Now, Tripp's not here to defend himself, but remember a few weeks ago, he was like, I think we give up on Travion. And I go, no, we got to hang on to him. And now I'm so thankful that we did, because he's the real deal. He's such a weapon. New England just keeps on rolling. Sure, I'll confess, Drake May did not have a great, fantasy week, but he's, even in those down fantasy weeks, we watch him and we go, oh yeah, Patriots are really good. He's really good. It was just Travion Henderson had, multiple touchdowns running the ball. I forget, it was 2 rush, 1 passing. I think it was 1 passing. So he stole a couple there, but that's good. That's good for Travion. So that's good news. And then a quick follow-up accountability to last week's show. If you're a loyal listener, I told you about a trade that got accepted Tuesday morning, even though I sent it Sunday before game started. My intention was I wanted to make the trade the previous week. It wasn't accepted until Tuesday, and I was surprised by it. And so my brother accepted that trade, and I immediately texted him and said, yo, I don't want to make that trade anymore. And he goes, sorry, you left the pending trade open. And so it's a huge lesson learned for all of us. If you send a trade on Sunday morning and then the games begin, be sure to go in and cancel it and then reevaluate once all the games. Make sure you have all the information before you pull off a trade. And so anyway, my brother, he refused to do a trade back. It was Dalton Kincaid for Zach Charbonnet. And I ended up with Kincaid, who got injured. And I'm like, come on, man, I don't want to trade for an injured guy. But Charbonnet only scored 6 points. So I'm not as upset about it. Still disappointed, but not as upset. And so we'll see if Dalton Kincaid can come back healthy. It's going to be a little tight because I think they play Thursday. So that's going to be interesting. But anyway, so that trade, it did go through, and I'm still not happy about it, but we'll push through. We'll move on. Forgiveness is key. It was my brother's birthday, so I had to forgive him anyway. So I couldn't avoid him. I had to call him on his birthday. So anyway, that's this week's accountability and confession. Well, each week here on the show, we do a weekly breakout. And Tripp's not here this week, so I'll have to carry the breakout. But we take a fantasy concept, we relate it to the Bible, and we relate it to life. And this week's topic is called Throwing a Pity Party. And I'll admit it off the top, I love throwing pity parties in fantasy. And oftentimes I'll do it in life as well. But we will start on the fantasy side, because when we play fantasy football, we obviously want to win every week. We want to win every matchup. We want to score as many points as we can. We want to win the championship every year. And so I've been playing for over 20 years. I'm in multiple leagues every year. And the reality is, you can't win every matchup. You can't win every league. You can't every week, every season. It's just the way it goes. That's what you sign up for when you play fantasy football. And so even the best teams, fantasy-wise, deal with injuries, bad breaks, disappointing performances from their players. And so all of us can relate to the challenges that come during a fantasy season. There are frustrations that take place throughout the season, even during the good seasons, right? But then there are those seasons where everything goes wrong, where anything that could go wrong actually goes wrong, where we just can't seem to catch a break. Nothing is to our benefit. Every close matchup goes the other way. When we have the big performance, like, oh man, look at my team's lighting it up. We lose because the other team scored more points. Like, you're the second highest scoring team and you played the first highest scoring team and you lose that week. But other than that, you're even having a down season. Like, most weeks you're scoring no points. Every week somebody's getting injured. It's just that season. And you know what it's like. You've had that season. If you've played for any amount of time, you've had that season where it just unravels. And if you make a trade, it backfires. If you drop a player, he ends up scoring a ton of points the next week on somebody else's roster. The times when you actually get that hot waiver wire pickup after a big performance, yeah, I got him. When you start him, nothing. He's back down to mediocre. And so also what is worse, one of the worst things that happens during a down season is when you have players that get injured midway through games or like early in the first half. That's when you know you're having a bad season. Because it's one thing like when a guy is out and you can replace him, but when you start a player, he gets injured and then there's nothing you can do about it and you just see the 2 points or the 1 point or the 0 points for that guy, brutal. And so when this type of season happens to us and we find ourselves at the bottom of the standings and dealing with a losing streak, we're tempted to throw a pity party. And let's face it, we do throw a pity party. That's what we do. We whine, we complain, we feel sorry for ourselves. And so when we talk to our league or when we, post in the group chat, you know how this goes. It's either you or it's somebody else in your league. But here's how it plays out. Here we go again, another injured player. Of course he's having a huge day. On my bench, I'm the worst at fantasy football. Why is this happening to me? No matter what I do, nothing goes my way. Every time I start him, he does nothing. Every time I bench him, he does well. Poor me. My fantasy team is terrible. I can't catch a break. I know I'll lose this week. I wonder who will get injured next. And so it's just this negativity firestorm that takes place, and we just end up wallowing in self-pity, feeling sorry for ourselves. And then the league starts to pile on too. So they start laughing at us, and we almost like them laughing at us because it's like, or like we initiate it because we feel sorry for ourselves and we're like, oh, I'm so bad, because we want to beat them to it, right? So it's like, I did this earlier in the year because I was having a bad season. Thankfully, I'm starting to turn it around. But I was the one initiating, like acknowledging how bad I was and made it kind of fun, which has now made the comeback and the winning streak that much better. But anyway, when we're in the middle of it, during the self-pity, we just start feeling the misery, the anguish, the despair, because everything is going the opposite way that we hoped, or the opposite way of what we thought these players were going to do. They're not playing well, they're injured, and we're having a bad season. And the reality is, in fantasy football, we'll get over it, right? Some seasons, they just don't go our way, and the challenges do pile up. But in life, we can find ourselves in seasons where everything seems to be going wrong. And this is much more serious than the fantasy seasons, right? Where we just can't catch a break. No matter what we do, it doesn't seem to help. The hits just keep coming, and life is going the opposite of what we hoped. And so then when life is going this way, it is an absolute nightmare. There's no getting around it. It stinks. It's brutal. And it threatens to rob us of our joy and our peace. And then if we aren't careful, we'll throw a pity party. We'll start whining, complaining, feeling sorry for ourselves. And then when we talk to our friends, or maybe we're in a group chat, or we talk to our spouse, and here's what we say. Poor me. My life is terrible. I can't catch a break. Why is this happening to me? Here we go again. Another sickness. Of course that would happen to me. I'm the worst spouse or parent. No matter what I do, nothing goes my way. Every time I start to change, I blow it again. And again, it's this negative firestorm that starts to take over, and these types of thoughts and perspectives then leave us wallowing in self-pity, misery, anguish, and despair. And what we do is we buy the lie that we deserve a pity party. And somehow this makes us feel better. Like I'm owed this pity party. And then we convince ourselves that I should be woe is me. I mean, look how bad things are. Poor me. And part of us likes the sometimes if it's vocal, we like the attention that it brings. Going back to the fantasy parallel, we want people to feel sorry for us and almost pile on, and we then feel more sorry for us. And it's this weird cycle that we find ourselves in. And I can admit to that. And so the option is, okay, throw pity parties, but then what? Where does that really leave us? Because it really just leaves us in a negative spot that doesn't move us forward. It doesn't help anything. And so it's ultimately a bad decision, even though we try to convince ourselves that it's somehow a good thing. And so we understand that there will be seasons where circumstances are brutal and we're tempted to wallow, where, nothing seems to be going our way. But thankfully, in these seasons, the first thing we have to realize is that Jesus has compassion for us, and he meets us in our despair, and he's loving, and he's understanding, and he's caring. And so what self-pity does is it causes us to go inward, and we become very me-focused. And so we have to lift our eyes, and we have to see Jesus, and we have to turn to Jesus, and we have to understand, okay, he does care about me. He will comfort me, and he's going to help pull me out of this negative self-pity mentality. Now, it may take some time to get out of the circumstance. Like, we may have to go through a tough season of life. And so, even in a fantasy season, we might not get out of the tough season, but we can choose not to have a pity party and just try to make changes, make the most of the season, and keep our joy and peace, and still somehow enjoy fantasy football. And for us, enjoy the camaraderie and the fellowship and still embrace that. But in life, we're still going to go through tough times, but we don't have to be filled with despair and self-pity and feel sorry for ourselves. Because instead, we can maintain the right perspective, have joy and peace as we rely and trust in the Lord. And so we can declare Psalm 28:7, the Lord is my strength and shield. I trust him with all my heart. He helps me, and my heart is filled with joy. I burst out in songs of thanksgiving. Now, that attitude in the midst of self-pity, it's like, oh, I can't get there. How can I sing songs of thanksgiving in the middle of despair? But that's what gets us out of that self-pity, because then our eyes go toward the goodness, the faithfulness, and the greatness of our God, and our spirits are lifted, our perspective changes, and we have hope, peace, joy. And so for those of us that are familiar with scripture, this is I want to read something that is, we know it, we hear it. Do we believe it? And do we live it, or are we choosing self-pity? So here's what it says in James 1:2-4 in the Amplified Translation. Consider it nothing but joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you fall into various trials. Be assured that the testing of your faith through experience produces endurance, leading to spiritual maturity and inner peace. And let endurance have its perfect result and do a thorough work, so that you may be perfect and completely developed in your faith, lacking in nothing. And so that's what the trials do. And so that's the process that we go through. And so sometimes things aren't going how we want them to, but it's in those seasons that we learn, we grow. Just to parallel it back to fantasy for a second, it's in those losing seasons where we learn about decision-making and how to, grow as a fantasy manager. And we make tweaks and that kind of thing. And so when we go through real life trials, God uses that to develop our character, to change us, to transform us. And so ultimately, helping us to become more like Jesus. And so when we have that perspective, we're not focused on poor me. We're focused on, okay, God is working in me. God is changing me. God is using this difficult season. And so when we start to think about that throwing that pity party that focuses on ourselves, a verse like this in 1 Thessalonians 5:18 encourages us to Give thanks in all circumstances, for this is the will of God in Christ Jesus for you. And so when we have gratitude and thanksgiving and thankfulness, that pulls us out of the self-pity, the pity party, the woe is me mentality, the wallowing in despair. Because we realize, oh, God is so good. God has been so faithful, and he is worthy to be praised, and my gratitude for him should be at the forefront. And so we can also be encouraged by this verse in Psalm 43:5, where the psalmist says, why are you cast down, O my soul? And why are you in turmoil within me? Hope in God, for I shall again praise him, my salvation and my God. And so why would we feel sorry for ourselves when we know that God loves us, he saved us, we have eternal life available and in front of us, and that's our ultimate destiny, and we know him now. We know that we can trust in the Lord to get us through whatever tough season we're in. We absolutely then get out of the woe is me, this turmoil within me, and we realize the bigger picture. And sure, trials and seasons are tough, they're brutal, and they also can surprise us. But here's the reality. We shouldn't be surprised that life is hard. They might surprise us, they might come out of nowhere, but that shouldn't be surprising. Just like in fantasy, we shouldn't be surprised that we have a bad season. It happens. It's part of fantasy. Guys are going to get injured. We're going to whiff on a couple draft picks. It's going to happen. And so we live in this broken world. There's going to be tough times. That's part of the deal. So we shouldn't be surprised by that. And so even when nothing appears to be going our way, as followers of Jesus, we aren't hopeless because we know in the end, we win. And so we walk in that victory and because of Christ. And so we don't remain in despair, but we have confident peace to keep moving forward and to trust God along the way. And so here's what Jesus says in John 16:33, and we'll wrap up here. I have told you these things so that in me you may have perfect peace. In the world, you have tribulation and distress and suffering. But be courageous, be confident, be undaunted, be filled with joy. I have overcome the world. My conquest is accomplished, my victory abiding. Man, let that set in. So good. It's powerful, man. When we grasp that and believe that, I'm victorious in Christ. Why would I be woe is me? I'm going to face some trials here. And listen, some people here today, you're dealing with unbelievable tragedy. You have, and I want to have compassion for you and know that Jesus has compassion for you. And he meets you in that pain. And he is with you and weeps with you. And so, but he also doesn't want us to remain in that despair because as believers and followers of Jesus, we have hope and confident peace that we know this world isn't all there is and we know how it ends in eternity with Jesus in absolute perfection, paradise, glory forever. That's what we cling to. And so we have no need to throw a pity party. No, we throw a party. We celebrate the victory that we have in Christ. And so that's why as followers of Jesus, we're not woe is me, pity party guy. No, we are joyful, peace-filled, confident, and celebratory, worshipful guy, right? That's what we've got. That's got to be our dominant perspective. And again, we're weak. We go through really challenging times when tragedies hit initially. Of course, it's hard to get there right away. But we know that we can't remain in that despair because it doesn't get us anywhere. It holds us back because God wants to pull us out of that swirling negativity and despair. So let's let go of the pity party and turn to the Lord. And so I hope that is encouraging to you today. We'd love to hear from you. How does this land for you? I was sort of throwing a pity party this morning and I threw on some worship music, some old school Charlie Hall. I don't know if anybody remembers him, but man, Marvelous Light, some good stuff from like 2000s. I needed that. I needed sort of just some good reminders. So that's what we've got to do. That's what we've got to do. The pity parties they're threatening. They're tempting, right? They're there. And then fantasy wise, thankfully, I'm finally getting out of this one pity party that I've been throwing for the last few weeks. Tough start to the season. So, and then of course I finally got some momentum, and then Drake London got hurt. So it's just one of those teams. It's just one of those seasons. It happens. So there you go. That's this week's breakout. I hope that was encouraging to you. All right. So we've got a little bit of time left here today. We miss having Trip around, but wanted to at least get to some peace or panic and some bandwagon riding. We'll do so quickly, but let's jump in. We've already talked about a number of players in regards to peace or panic, but here we go. Our segment, peace or panic.
Well, I guess deep down I'm feeling a little confused.
It's just a lot to process, and that's what I'm doing.
We can't have anyone freak out there, okay? We've got to keep our composure. We've got too far. There's too much to lose. We've got to keep our composure.
Well, don't worry. Don't worry. I'm not going to do what you all think I'm going to do, which is flip out.
Peace or panic. I want to talk about two teams, the Chargers and the Browns. The Browns are going nowhere fast. And what's interesting, though, is there was a moment where we were confident in the tight ends. David Njoku, Harold Fannin Jr., at different points this season, even at some points, we liked both of them. And now, after last week, I think there's a lot of panic. I don't like what's happening in Cleveland. I don't know. The Shedeur Sanders story is so hard to wrap my mind around, because the way the coaches have handled it, the way the media has handled the whole thing, the way he handled it, it's just a weird situation. So anyway, I just feel a lot of panic at the tight end position for those two guys, because those were fantasy worthy players, at least streamers at the very least. But then also Quinshon Judkins has been tremendous this year, a great running back. Once he came back and dealt with, he had some issues off the field, but once he got out there, he was running the ball well. But then last 3 weeks, he's been running back 41, 26, 43. There's some panic there. Again, the overall Cleveland situation, and then specifically for Judkins, I don't know. It doesn't feel like Stefanski is going to be back. So the end of the season for the Browns, I think, could be more negative than positive, because on the flip side, a team like the Saints, to me, are going to have a strong finish. They might not even win a lot. I just think they're going to play well, like try to be competitive. There will be some positive momentum. There'll be a couple guys, Juwan Johnson, who will produce fantasy points. If they keep playing Alvin Kamara, he'll give you a few points. Devin Neal, potentially. Olave. So anyway, the Browns, not so much. Now, the Chargers, on the other hand, what do we make of them? This was a debacle on Sunday. I mean, they looked terrible across the board, and a lot of injuries. So that's affecting everything. Justin Herbert banged up. Vidal got hurt. They're on a bye. And so I'm going to go peace with the Chargers, because I still trust Harbaugh, and I like the running game. I'm still waiting for Omarion Hampton to come back. So I'm keeping him on my IR. I'll have Vidal as well. And so from a wide receiver standpoint, I'm not sure you can really trust Keenan Allen or Quentin Johnston, but I wouldn't give up on Ladd McConkey. And then same with their tight end Gadsden. So I'd hang on to those guys. Now, Herbert, I'd probably want to have a backup plan with him. I talked earlier on the show about it's nice to have one quarterback, not with Justin Herbert. You got to have another one, just in case injuries start piling up. But overall, I don't think the Chargers are out of it. They're still fighting for a playoff spot. The Broncos are pulling away in that division, though, in the AFC West. But I'm gonna try to keep the peace with the Chargers overall. Not so much for Quentin Johnston. I guess he's droppable at this point, which is crazy. Yeah, I hate to say it. All right, so those a couple thoughts on peace or panic. let's talk waiver wire and we'll consider some guys whether or not we're jumping on the bandwagon. Here we go.
Get off the bandwagon.
It's time for Bandwagon Riding. Getting on, getting off. Make up your mind, all right?
Here's who I'm jumping on. The 49ers with Brock Purdy. I like, and specifically Brock Purdy and George Kittle. I like what I saw. I like the numbers that they put up. George Kittle could have a nice, strong finish to the season. So jumping on that bandwagon. Brock Purdy likes George Kittle. When it comes to some of the backup running backs that we were talking about earlier, one name I did not mention because he didn't get into the end zone, but he's good. Keaton Mitchell. Do not forget about Keaton Mitchell. Do not give up on him. Rather, jump on his bandwagon. Now, Derrick Henry, still a beast. He's great. But if for whatever reason he gets injured and if Justice Hill continues to stay out, that's why Keaton Mitchell got a little bit of opportunity. But Keaton Mitchell, a couple years ago, finished the season really strong his rookie year. And so I jumped on his bandwagon then. He's had injuries since. He is explosive, one of the fastest guys in the league. That guy has big playability. So all he needs is a couple plays a game. He's in that Jahmyr Gibbs, Devon Achane type of player. Now, he's not on that level, talent-wise necessarily, or opportunity. But keep an eye on Keaton Mitchell. So jumping on that bandwagon. Let's see. Darnell Mooney, not real interested. Xavier Legette, it's too up and down. I like Legette as a Panthers fan. I hope he does great, but I'm not sure I'm really jumping on the bandwagon fantasy-wise to where I'm going to count on him down the stretch this season. How about Josh Wiley? Touchdown. He scored a touchdown for the Packers. He's a tight end. Not jumping on his bandwagon. Christian Watson. Historically, he has not been one of my guys. I've put him in that boom or bust category and not somebody that I have a lot of confidence in. But the Packers need him, especially I think Dobbs got a little banged up. Dobbs is the one that I trust and like, even though his ceiling's not as high. But a couple touchdowns for Christian Watson. I'm not like eagerly jumping on his bandwagon, but I understand if you do. And then how about Tootin for the Jaguars? He had 13 fantasy points, did get banged up, but he was playing like more than ETN. And then they were sort of splitting and ETN ended up finishing well with Tootin getting a little banged up. So that's one to monitor, but I kind of like both of them down the stretch. So I like both those guys. I'm on the bandwagon. But Tootin's intriguing, really intriguing. And then how about Jameson Williams? So I think with Laporta going down, a couple good weeks for Jameson Williams with the Lions, I think it's fair to jump on his bandwagon. Now, I'm on Ross St. Brown, had a bad game. I wouldn't jump off his bandwagon, but it was just sort of a concern. The Lions, what are we going to make of the Lions? I want them and the Bills to be in the Super Bowl, but neither team has given us a ton of confidence consistently this season. So hopefully they figure it out by the time the playoffs start, because I'd love to see both those teams surprise some people. Because like maybe teams like the Broncos are peaking in the regular season, the Colts peaked early, and then maybe the Lions and the Bills, I hate to say it, but potentially the Chiefs, we'll see. They're the ones that get hot toward the end and into the playoffs. But anyway, I think Jameson Williams will jump on his bandwagon. We've been on the Theo Johnson bandwagon. Stay on that one. If Kayshon Boutte comes back, jump on his bandwagon after his injury. And then, Mason Taylor playing with Tyrod Taylor with the Jets. I'm on that bandwagon. I think that could be okay. He's got to throw to somebody. And Taylor can actually throw the ball. Poor Tyrod Taylor, man. He's had a tough career. Like he's kind of in that Jacoby Brissett category where you're good, but you're not good enough to be a consistent starter. But Taylor might be okay for the Jets to at least move the ball in the passing game a little bit more than Fields. So there you go. That's this week's bandwagon riding. And so as far as waiver wire goes, you've heard me say it before, go get backup running backs, load up. Like my roster sometimes this time of year, it'll be 5 backup running backs. And then in the next couple of weeks, someone gets in there, they start contributing. And so that's what you want. Like wide receivers that are replaceable, meaning if they're like 10, 11 points, you usually can go find somebody with similar on the waiver wire. So you don't need them on your bench. You can go pick them up. But the backup running backs, you better have them because they're as soon as one of those guys goes down, they're very valuable. You want them already on your roster. So that's my my advice as we wrap things up today. But we missed Trip. Should be back next week. Looking forward to that. But thank you so much for listening today. I'm Bryce Johnson. I'm a fantasy manager who follows Jesus. I believe in the good news that he died on the cross for my sin. He was resurrected. And through faith, I've been saved by his grace. I hope that is true for you as well. And I hope you'll join me as we live life as sports fans who follow Jesus together. We have no reason to throw a pity party or to stay at a pity party. Man, we got so much to celebrate as we follow Jesus. And so let's worship him. Let's be filled with gratitude. Let's have peace and joy because of our victory in Christ. Have a great one. We'll talk to you next time right here on the Fantasy Football Fellowship Podcast.